Haruto's life takes a tragic turn, following a plane crash that robs him of his family and condemns him to relentless bullying at a prestigious magic school. Just as despair threatens to consume him, a cryptic letter leads him to a dungeon, where he unlocks potent space-time powers, connecting him with his future self. With his spectral mentor's guidance, Haruto traverses treacherous dungeons, rescues his friend Shinonome from certain death, and hones his skills in weapon synthesis. But the revelation of his true mission shakes Haruto to his core. His sister, presumed dead in the crash, is trapped in a time warp. With only 24 hours to save her from a fatal fall, Haruto vows to rewrite destiny and reunite with his sister. Fueled by determination and armed with newfound abilities, he embarks on a race against time, ready to defy the odds and seize his chance at redemption. Everything is calm in a magic school until suddenly, a boy is hit and knocked to the ground by a fireball. His name is Kuju Haruto, and some students are bullying him, mocking him for being defeated by basic magic. Injured from their attack, Haruto gets up angrily and demands they return what they took from him. Haruto had brought them the fresh sirloin limited burger they wanted, in exchange for the things they stole from him. The bullies tell them he forgot the drink, and as punishment, they throw another fireball at him. Just as Haruto struggles to stand it after their attacks, a girl appears. Seeing she is part of the school's disciplinary committee, the bullies flee. As they run away, they throw Haruto's stolen phone at his face, causing it to fall and break on the ground. The girl rushes to Haruto and asks if he is alright. Haruto tells her to leave, warning that she might also be ostracized if she associates with him. Despite this, she admits she has feelings for Haruto and says she doesn't care about being excluded. Heartbroken and feeling useless, Haruto walks away, telling her that they can't survive in this place if they continue hanging out like they did when they were kids. As Haruto walks through the school lobby, the air fills with gossip about him. People mock him for being a special admission student despite having no magical abilities. Some dismiss it as a system error, while others suggest he was recommended by influential people who helped him pass the exam in exchange for bribes. Although Haruto doesn't want to believe the rumors about him, he can't deny them. After all, who would believe that someone as weak as him got into such a prestigious school? He recalls the day when his parents suddenly informed him of his special admission to the magic school. Initially, he hesitated to ask why, and now he can't ask, even if he wants to, as his entire family died on that very day. Had he perished with them, he would have been spared from these hardships and discrimination. Since Haruto was admitted with no magical abilities, he couldn't join any of the mage courses, leaving him with only the option to take the swordsmanship course. In a world where magic is everything, poor Haruto was forced to live as a seemingly useless melee fighter. As the only survivor in his family, and a constant burden to his comrades in the dungeons, Haruto earned the nickname the Deity of Plagues. The scene shifts as Haruto arrives home. When he unlocks the door, he notices a letter without the sender's name or any stamps. As he breaks the seal, a miraculous blue light engulfs him, transporting him to another realm. Bewildered, Haruto asks where he is, and a vague spirit appears before him. The spirit asks if it is the year 2054 according to the Western calendar, and if he is Kuju Haruto. When Haruto nods, the spirit reveals itself to be his future self, having sent the letter from the future. The spirit explains that in 10 years, Haruto will gain the ability to manipulate space and time. However, knowing that 10 years is a long wait, the future Haruto has decided to train him now, so he can become the Grand Mage of space and time much sooner. Knowing Haruto's skeptical nature and the difficulty of convincing him, his future self firmly instructs him to follow his guidance. The future Haruto asks him to enter an F-rank dungeon alone, promising to communicate further once he reaches the destination. Haruto, though doubtful, decides to go along with it and heads to the Shinjuku Imperial Garden F-rank dungeon alone. As he approaches the entrance, he wonders what he could possibly find in a cleared, low-ranked dungeon like this one. The thought crosses his mind that if this turns out to be some kind of elaborate prank, he will burn and tear up the letter in anger. Despite his skepticism, Haruto follows his future self's directions, moving straight ahead, and then taking a right turn as instructed. With each step, his curiosity grows and he remains alert, considering the possibility of a prank. Haruto reaches a dead end and feels frustrated. His future self instructs him to put the letter into a slit in the wall, initially taking it as a jest. Haruto sighs and complies, sliding the letter into the slit. To his astonishment, the wall cracks open before him, revealing a hidden passage. Haruto struggles to comprehend this unexpected turn of events, as he's never encountered such a feature in a dungeon before. Entering the newly revealed passage, Haruto finds himself in a vast chamber, dominated by a large, radiant jewel at its center. Recognizing it as a skill cube, his future self urges him to touch it and acquire the skill within. With a mix of anticipation and trepidation, Haruto reaches out and touches the cube. However, instead of obtaining the skill, Haruto's future self offers an apology, and the room begins to disintegrate around him. From the shattered remnants of the walls and ceiling, a formidable golem emerges, its presence filling the chamber with a sense of imminent danger. With a single devastating blow from the golem, Haruto is slammed into the wall, his body crushed and blood spilling across its surface. Amidst searing pain and fading consciousness, he feels the warmth of his blood mixing with the heat of the moment. As darkness threatens to consume him, Haruto's thoughts turn to his deceased family, finding solace in the prospect of joining them in the afterlife. However, amidst his fading consciousness, his future self's voice pierces through the haze, questioning Haruto's acceptance of failure in his schooling and his apparent willingness to succumb to a meaningless demise orchestrated by his future self's deception. Anger surges within Haruto at the accusation, acknowledging the truth of his feelings of worthlessness, but refusing to accept this outcome without resistance. Realizing he hasn't surrendered to despair yet, Haruto's future self urges him to summon his inner resilience and transform his life's purpose, fueled by newfound determination. Haruto rises to his feet and unsheathes his sword. Despite being covered in blood, he refuses to yield in the face of adversity. As the golem draws nearer, notifications from the system begin to flood Haruto's senses. The system informs him that his impending death has been averted, indicating that a certain condition has been fulfilled. Suddenly, his physical form undergoes a miraculous reversal, with wounds healing and injuries disappearing without a trace. Meanwhile, the skilled cube shatters, engulfing Haruto in a cascade of radiant blue light. The system announces Haruto's acquisition of space-time magic, marking a monumental shift in his abilities and destiny. With newfound power coursing through him, Haruto stands ready to reshape his fate and confront the challenges ahead with unwavering resolve. Apart from space-time magic, Haruto gains access to Quick Body, Material Rewind, Stop Chain, and his space-time mage passive skill. His future self reveals that, in order to expedite his awakening, Haruto was compelled to endure some fatal requirements. Well, at least it seems better than enduring another 10 years of accusing yourself of being good for nothing while living such a miserable life. Haruto's future self apologizes for not informing him about the consequences beforehand and explains that without his intervention, Haruto would have stumbled upon space-time magic accidentally. A decade later, he reveals that it's a hidden quest, known only to him until now. In this moment of realization, Haruto connects the dots and comprehends that the voice he's been hearing is truly his own from the future. Lost in contemplation, his future self urges him to focus, as a tutorial is about to commence. If only tutorials in our universities and schools were as engaging and enjoyable as this one. As Haruto begins to grasp his newfound powers, he effortlessly maneuvers, dodging the golem's attacks with agility, feeling his body unusually light. He speculates whether this lightness is a result of the passive skill he acquired. His future self assured him of guiding him on how his space-time mage should combat, instructing Haruto to rely on his senses rather than his sight. He urges him to perceive the flow of time that governs the world around him. Instilling confidence in Haruto, his future self expresses belief in his abilities. Following his instructions, Haruto tunes into the temporal currents surrounding him and activates his space-time magic. Employing his level 1 quick body skill, he swiftly dashes forward, targeting what appears to be Golem's core. With a decisive strike, he pierces the core, causing it to shatter and the golem to crumble into pieces. As Haruto vanquishes the golem, his level skyrockets by 4, and his swordsman skill sees an impressive increase of 8. Additionally, he earns a staggering 45,800 credits. Addressing him by his moniker, Deity of Plagues, his future self probes whether he now fully trusts him. With the powers promised by the enigmatic spirit now in his possession, Haruto admits he's inclined to trust his future self, though some suspicions linger. His future self directs him to the next step, escaping the dungeon. Confused, Haruto wonders if there's more to be done in this low-ranked dungeon. However, his future self reveals that their next objective is to prevent the imminent death of his childhood friend, Shinonome, at the hands of a monster. The revelation sends shivers down Haruto's spine. his future self expands on the dire situation, explaining that his friend, along with others, has ventured into a D-ranked dungeon and faces imminent death at the hands of an ultra-boss monster. Urging Haruto to intervene and alter the course of fate, his future self implores him to save his friend. Determined and solemn, Haruto takes the gravity of the situation to heart and swiftly makes his way towards the dungeon. His future self continues to provide details, revealing that the impending threat is an unexpected C-rank extra boss, a formidable opponent far beyond their expectations. Despite his friend's team attempting rescue spells, the absence of powerful adventurers nearby spells doom for their endeavor. As Haruto attempts to focus, he silences his future self's elaborations. Frustrated, he demands to know why he wasn't informed earlier. His future self rebukes him, holding him accountable for distancing himself from others and instructing his friend to do the same. Mocking his newfound determination to change the world, his future self highlights his previous aloofness. Unfazed by the criticism, Haruto resolves to act according to his own will. Haruto's future self expresses satisfaction, deeming Haruto's reaction as the one he had hoped for, and pledges to reward him by teaching an application of space-time magic. The scene transitions to the depths of the D-ranked dungeon, where Shinonome lies unconscious after being struck by the extra boss known as the Dark Sentinel. Chaos ensues among her teammates, caught off guard by the appearance of an extra boss in such a low-ranked dungeon. Despite one of them attempting a rescue spell, there is no response, with death looming ominously. Shinonome refuses to surrender, summoning her courage to stand and launching a fireball at the extra boss. Her attack proves too weak to even scratch the monster. With the creature poised to strike her down, Shinonome cries out for help. Just as the boss monster is about to deliver the fatal blow, Haruto arrives on the scene and employs his newly acquired stop-chain skill. Locking the monster in his time chains, he ensures Shinonome's safety before engaging the boss in combat. As his magic skill begins to wane, Haruto faces off against the boss. Dodging the monster's heavy sword strikes, he maneuvers to find an opening. Despite identifying a weak spot, penetrating it proves to be a formidable challenge. Their swords clash fiercely, but Haruto's blade shatters into pieces under the force of the onslaught. As the boss monster prepares another attack, Haruto swiftly employs his quick body skill to evade. Remembering what he learned, he realizes that the monster's armor is too sturdy for his sword to penetrate, and only the unprotected parts of his body seem vulnerable. Focusing on the monster's head, Haruto's future self reminds him of his broken sword. Undeterred, Haruto acknowledges this and utilizes material rewind to reforge his weapon. With his blade restored, he immobilizes the beast by stabbing it in the head. It becomes evident that he has altered the course of fate and saved his friend from impending doom. As help arrives to rescue Shinonome's fallen comrades, she expresses her gratitude to Haruto for saving her. However, before she can press for an explanation, Haruto requests that she keep the events between them a secret. Shinonome, visibly flustered, betrays her feelings for Haruto with a blush. As she seeks answers about Haruto's unique abilities, his future self advises him to keep the existence of space-time magic a secret. Haruto, not wanting to draw attention to himself, considers how to deceive her. However, to his surprise, Shinonome reveals that she can also hear Haruto's future self's voice. When she questions him about it, Haruto feigns ignorance, suggesting she may be imagining things. Haruto concocts a fabricated tale, claiming he's been training in a specialized swordsman skill, which he prefers to keep under wraps until it's fully developed. Accepting his explanation, Shinonome agrees to maintain their secret. A day passes, and the scene transitions to the classroom, where Haruto sits lost in thought, reflecting on his success in saving his friend and acquiring formidable space-time magic. He approaches the teacher's desk to submit his assignments. However, his moment of quiet contemplation is interrupted when the bullies from earlier call out to him. The bullies taunt Haruto with rumors, mocking his perceived helplessness in fleeing the D-ranked dungeon. They recount their friend's injury in the dungeon, demanding Haruto compensate for the expenses incurred. Choosing not to engage, Haruto's silence only fuels the bullies' aggression, prompting them to threaten him with further violence. Fed up with their harassment, Haruto finally snaps, branding them as deaf, worthless trash. Enraged by his defiance, the bullies charge at Haruto, intent on attacking him. However, with his newfound skills honed in the dungeon, Haruto perceives their slow movements with ease. Defending himself adeptly, he swiftly turns the tables, teaching the bullies a lesson they won't forget. Warning them to stay away, Haruto seizes their belongings, vowing to destroy them if they dare to cross him again. Having dealt with the bullies, Haruto hopes they'll finally leave him alone as he returns to his class. The professor announces the upcoming semester's magic capacity measurement class. When Haruto's turn arrives, he approaches the mirror device, expecting his magic capacity to register as 0 once more. However, with his newfound status as a space-time mage, Haruto decides to test his abilities by infusing some space-time magic into the measurement. As he does so, a brilliant blue light emanates from the mirror, only to shatter into pieces, leaving everyone stunned. Haruto frets over whether he accidentally exerted too much magic, worried about drawing unnecessary attention to himself. Meanwhile, Shinonome, seated on a bench, blushes and smiles proudly at her friend's newfound strength. Later that day, as Haruto exits the school, he overhears a starkly different tone in the comments around him. People discuss how Haruto seemingly obliterated the magic device, speculating that he must be ranked at least above A class. Irritated by the speculation, Haruto suddenly hears a familiar voice. Following the sound leads him to a plushie from his home. Suspecting the plushie to be his future self, Haruto questions its peculiar form. His future self reveals that the plushie is a manifestation of space-time magic and urgently informs Haruto of an emergency, promising explanations afterward. Haruto's future self urgently informs him about the emergence of the Chaos Dragon, appearing earlier than anticipated in his timeline. Warning of imminent casualties, if left unchecked, his future self stresses the need for immediate action to dispatch the dragon. Upon hearing about the dragon, Haruto suggests contacting the Adventurers Guild to alert them. However, his future self insists there's no time for that. As they discuss, the dragon suddenly materializes in the skies above them, defying expectations by appearing directly overhead, instead of at the Adventurers Guild, where it was supposed to appear. Haruto's future self explains that the dragon is a migratory species, never lingering in one place for long. As the dragon descends upon the school grounds, panic ensues as students flee for their lives, with the exception of the student council. Unfazed, the student council swiftly mobilizes, forming a defensive line and unleashing anti-dragon bullet magic at the approaching beast. Despite their hopes, the dragon emerges unscathed from the barrage of anti-dragon bullets, much to everyone's astonishment. In retaliation, the dragon unleashes a devastating purple flame of destruction upon the student council, leaving them injured and unconscious on the ground. Haruto's future self reassures him that the outcome was to be expected, given that they were merely students. However, Haruto interrupts, insisting they have no time for debate. In response, his future self sprays a liquid onto his face, revealing it to be dragon incense, designed to attract dragons. Exploiting dragons' limited intelligence, the incense serves as a distraction. As the dragon approaches, Haruto's future self urges him to defeat it as the sole wielder of space-time magic. Haruto spots his friend Shinonome, tending to the injured student council members, and resolves to lure the dragon away from her, determined to protect her from harm. Haruto's future self suggests fleeing to minimize attention, but Haruto opts to confront the dragon head-on, utilizing his quick body skill to lead it to a deserted train yard. Once there, he leaps over the fence and requests details from his future self about the dragon. His future self reveals the dragon's dark attribute and warns of its deadly breath, which could spell instant death even for Haruto. Additionally, the dragon's miasma carries a debilitating delay effect debuff and boasts physical resistance, rendering it immune to careless weak attacks. Realizing the monstrous nature of the dragon, which seems to have originated 5 years in the future, Haruto resolves to exploit its juvenile state and low intelligence to gain an advantage in the battle. With this knowledge provided by his future self, Haruto prepares to confront the formidable foe. Haruto's future self reveals that the dragon attracting incense costs 500,000 credits, equivalent to 500,000 yen, and admits to deducting the amount from Haruto's bank account. Haruto admonishes him for the unauthorized transaction and questions how he obtained his PIN code, oblivious to the fact that he is speaking to his future self. However, his future self reassures him not to worry, promising that he will quickly earn back such an amount. Haruto's future self continues to motivate him, emphasizing the potential rewards awaiting him if he defeats the dragon, a substantial monetary reward, and access to a skill cube for a new space-time spell. However, before he can elaborate further on the dragon's weak point, the creature closes in and unleashes its fiery breath. Despite the imminent danger, Haruto manages to evade the attack, but he soon finds himself confronted by another assault from the dragon. To his future self's surprise, Haruto demonstrates a practical application of his space-time magic, narrowly avoiding the attack at the last moment. With his quick thinking, Haruto identifies the dragon's core and prepares to strike, but before he can land a blow, the dragon abruptly disappears into thin air, leaving him momentarily bewildered. Haruto's future self reveals that the Chaos Dragon possesses the ability to transform its entire body into miasma, a revelation that frustrates Haruto. He chastises his future self for not disclosing such crucial information before the battle commenced. To compound matters, his future self informs him that the dragon can materialize its miasma, forming an army of small dragon-like creatures known as the Legion. Haruto ridicules his future self for referring to such a formidable creature with numerous abilities as a juvenile. He questions why the dragon has appeared now instead of 5 years later, to which his future self suggests that Haruto's actions may have altered the timeline. As the legions swarm toward him, Haruto utilizes his quick body skill to evade their attacks. Through swift movements, he discovers that the small dragon monsters do not transform into miasma. Upon being struck, waiting for the opportune moment, Haruto slices through the legions, impressing his future self and gaining 3 levels in the process. With the smaller creatures disposed of, the Chaos Dragon launches a powerful attack at Haruto, barely evading the onslaught by sidestepping behind a train. Haruto finds himself in a precarious situation, having already depleted much of his stamina while dealing with the legions. As Haruto ponders how to reach the dragon's core, his future self cautions him that his attacks won't reach that high. Scanning his surroundings for a solution, Haruto seizes upon an idea. Grasping the stuffed animal inhabited by his future self, he extends its limbs as high as possible. Employing his stop-chain magic on the plushie, he immobilizes it in mid-air, transforming it into a makeshift trampoline. Using the makeshift platform to launch himself into the air, Haruto closes in on the dragon. Utilizing his stop-chain magic once more, he temporarily restrains the massive beast. Though aware that he can only hold it for a few precious seconds, Haruto seizes the opportunity. With a swift and precise strike, he pierces the dragon's core, successfully shattering it. With the Chaos Dragon defeated, Haruto accomplishes a remarkable feat, despite it being classified as a juvenile by his future self. This victory significantly boosts Haruto's level by 15 and increases his swordsman skill by 28. Additionally, he earns an impressive 872,300 credits and acquires a valuable item known as the Chaos Dragon Fang. Inspecting the system panel, Haruto discovers that his rank has ascended from E to C, marking a substantial improvement. While his future self appears pleased with his achievement, he also expresses irritation, questioning why Haruto used him as a mere stepping stone. Ignoring the complaint, Haruto remains focused on assessing the considerable enhancement in his stats. As Haruto and his future self sense someone approaching, they both agree it would be troublesome if they were discovered. Hurrying towards home, Haruto casually opens a sandwich and offers some to his future self. However, his future self reminds him that a stuffed animal couldn't possibly eat anything, urging him to use common sense. In response, Haruto jokingly points out the absurdity of a talking stuffed animal, but he quickly shifts the conversation to his deceased family, requesting his future self not to mock him. His future self reassures him, affirming their unity. Despite knowing something about his sister Ria, his future self decides to keep it a secret from Haruto for a little while longer. As Haruto recalls his newly acquired weapon material, his future self encourages him to skip school and proceed with weapon synthesis. The following day, Haruto, accompanied by his future self, ventures to the Adventurers Guild at the Shinjuku Metropolitan Government Office Branch. Arriving at the location, Haruto reflects on his past belief that someone as feeble as him had no place in such an establishment. His future self proudly asserts that their current accomplishments are solely due to his guidance. However, Haruto admonishes his future self to remain focused, reminding him that they will depart promptly after completing the weapon synthesis. Patiently waiting in the reception lobby, Haruto awaits his turn. Upon approaching the counter, he informs the receptionist of his recent dungeon conquest and requests an evaluation of his achievements. The receptionist, initially viewing Haruto as a weak individual, takes his adventurer card for verification. When Haruto places his hand on the identity confirmation panel, the receptionist is astonished to discover that he has advanced from rank E to C in just 1 day. She considers it impossible and suspects a system malfunction. Not wanting to draw attention to himself, Haruto utilizes his level 2 material rewind skill on the system panel, concealing his true progress and rank. He calmly questions the receptionist about her reaction, causing her to become confused and return his card without further ado. Haruto's future self commends his astuteness in utilizing material rewind effectively. Leading him to an elevator, he guides Haruto to the location where they will conduct weapon synthesis. Haruto explains to his future self that he cannot enter the synthesis room, as one needs to be at least rank A to access it. Haruto's future self reassures him not to fret and transforms into a letter, instructing Haruto to hold him towards the scanner. The gate opens as if by magic. As they enter the room, Haruto can't help but wonder about the rank of his future self. Perhaps he's a hotshot at triple S rank or even higher. With a smile, Haruto eagerly steps into the room, brimming with excitement about the prospect of weapon synthesis. As Haruto enters the room, a scientist mistakes him for a participant in a field trip. Clarifying his purpose, Haruto explains that he's there solely to request the synthesis of a weapon. The seemingly lazy laboratory chief, Shirayama, questions Haruto about his adventurer rank, suspicious of him potentially being a student who bypassed security measures. In response, Haruto presents the Chaos Dragon drop item, leaving Shirayama astounded by its uniqueness. Recognizing the item's significance, Shirayama unlocks the device for Haruto, revealing its exceptional capabilities as one of the most advanced in all of Japan. Impressed, Shirayama informs Haruto that the analytical results obtained from the materials he inputs are beyond the guild's records. Offering his assistance, Shirayama allows Haruto to use the device free of charge and requests him to notify when he completes his task. Haruto's future self provides him with guidance on using the device, recognizing Haruto's unfamiliarity with it. He points out that since Haruto hasn't attained a B rank yet, he wouldn't have encountered it before. Explaining the 4-step process of weapon synthesis, his future self begins with a selection of the base weapon. Haruto is advised to choose the E-rank sword, lent to him by the Academy, as the base weapon for the synthesis. However, his future self clarifies that only one attribute can be imbued into the weapon, considering its F rank. Higher-ranked weapons have the capacity for multiple attributes. In the 3rd step, Haruto must choose the material for synthesis, which in his case will be the Chaos Dragon's Fang. His future self elaborates that under certain conditions, 2 swords can also be combined. Once all decisions are made, the final step is determining the time allocated for the forging process. Haruto's future self emphasizes that the strength of the weapon hinges on these factors. With that, Haruto initiates the synthesis process and inputs his sword. Next, he selects an element from the available options, finding only 5 elements. Upon his future self's suggestion, he opts for the light attribute. Haruto proceeds by inserting the Chaos Dragon's dropped item, but when it comes time to select the duration, his future self recommends a 3-year time frame. Haruto hesitates, recognizing the lengthy period, but yields to his future self's insistence. As the synthesis initiates, his future self intervenes, utilizing his magic to accelerate the device's time, resulting in the forging of the rank A Chaos Sword with the light attribute in an instant. His future self cautions him that such actions are taxing and expresses exhaustion. The lab attendant is left dumbfounded, witnessing the seemingly impossible feat of condensing a 3-year forging process into mere seconds. As he frantically inspects his device, Haruto swiftly stores his Chaos Sword in an item box and hastily departs, expressing gratitude to the attendant. Despite the lab guy's calls to wait, Haruto disappears without delay. As Haruto exits the building, he overhears whispers circulating about rumors concerning a lone individual who vanquished a formidable Chaos Dragon. There's chatter about various guilds eager to seize this opportunity to locate and recruit the said individual promptly. Irritated by these rumors and the unwanted attention, Haruto swiftly makes his way home. Poor guy, since gaining his powers, it feels like he's constantly evading a pursuit. Haruto's future self suggests that instead of heading home, they should go to the dungeon, where the sacred beast Cerberus dwells, to test out his new weapon. Although intimidated by the mention of the formidable creature, Haruto is hesitant to respond when Shinonome suddenly approaches him, running. Shinonome, visibly distressed, tearfully explains that she heard from other students that the Chaos Dragon had targeted Haruto. Concerned, she revealed that she had been sending him messages, but none were marked as read and he didn't show up to school, deepening her worry. Haruto, surprised by her presence, inquires about her purpose there. In turn, Shinonome explains she came as a delegate to submit an application for a dungeon raid. Recalling Shinonome's status as a top student in the second-year mage program, Haruto's future self advises him to divulge as little information as possible to her, emphasizing the need for secrecy. As Shinonome wipes away her tears, she expresses her relief at seeing Haruto safe. Haruto apologizes for causing her worry. Once she composes herself, she notices the peculiar plushie on Haruto's back. Finding it adorable, she asks for a closer look, hugging it tightly and detecting a familiar scent resembling Haruto's. Initially comfortable, Haruto's future self becomes slightly annoyed as Shinonome squeezes him. Haruto suggests she can keep the plushie for a while if she likes it so much, requesting her to return it later. After bidding her goodbye, Haruto breathes a sigh of relief, having successfully diverted Shinonome's attention, despite his future self's protests to not leave him behind. Haruto swiftly departs, before Shinonome recalls her inquiries about his presence at the guild. In the following scene, Haruto finds himself consoling his future self, urging him not to be upset for being left behind, explaining that he returned for him as swiftly as possible. Surprisingly, his future self expresses gratitude instead of anger, acknowledging that without Haruto's actions, he would never have had the chance to reunite with his childhood friend, whom he lost 10 years ago. Meanwhile, as Haruto walks past, he notices someone observing him from a nearby window. Intrigued, he singles out this person as his next target of interest. Shortly after, Haruto is summoned to the student council office, where Vice President Sakura Kuji Yuzuki questions him about the incident involving the dragon's defeat. As Haruto firmly denies any involvement with the dragon or its demise, Vice President Sakura Kuji presses further, citing reports that placed him in the vicinity of the dragon. Haruto explains that the creature shifted its attention elsewhere, allowing him to escape narrowly. He stresses the intensity of the situation, indicating it was a near-death experience. With a scrutinizing gaze, the Vice President probes for details about the other student involved, but Haruto maintains he was too preoccupied with escaping to identify them. Exhaling heavily, the Vice President lets Haruto go, though she halts him momentarily. Haruto, however, forges ahead without looking back, leaving the encounter behind him. As Haruto questions his future self about the reason for suspicion, his future self takes out a tablet and shows him the video of his encounter with the dragon, albeit in a blurry manner. Haruto ponders the possibility of using space-time magic to halt the spread of the video, but his future self informs him that he hasn't attained the necessary skill level yet to wield such a powerful ability. As Haruto steps into his classroom, he notices a stark difference in the atmosphere. Instead of being ignored as usual, whispers and gossip swirl around him. Shinonome approaches him, her expression cautious, warning him to be careful for reasons he doesn't quite grasp. Then, Sumeragi Ryuga, the individual who previously kept a watchful eye on Haruto, strides over and introduces himself as the student council president. Ryuga wastes no time boasting about his skills, proudly declaring himself a top-tier genius within the school's hierarchy. Without hesitation, he reveals his purpose for seeking out Haruto, an invitation to a duel. As the surrounding students discuss Haruto's impending defeat in the duel, mocking him openly, Haruto prepares to question Ryuga. However, before he can utter a word, Ryuga himself offers an explanation. For his interest in Haruto, he reveals his fascination with Haruto's seemingly impossible feats, destroying the magic capacity device and slaying the Chaos Dragon single-handedly. Sweat beads form on Haruto's forehead as anxiety creeps in. How could Ryuga know about his encounter with the dragon? It wasn't something he expected to be common knowledge. Ryuga's intense gaze sends chills down Haruto's spine, suggesting a deeper motive behind his interest in Haruto. It becomes evident that Ryuga is the type to manipulate situations to maintain his superiority, rather than put in genuine effort. Ryuga continues to boast about his skills, claiming to have single-handedly defeated a fierce dragon himself. He proposes settling the dispute over the title of Dragon Slayer through a magic duel. In this magic school, such duels are considered secret tests, sanctioned and facilitated by the Adventurer Cultivation Agency. They serve as a means to evaluate the skills and strengths of students, with the results determining their rankings. Students who rise to the top through these duels are privileged and guided toward the path of becoming Adventurer Guild officers after graduation. However, the duels lack serious rules beyond the prohibition of using spells that could result in the opponent's death or permanent disfigurement. This lack of regulation often leads to intense and potentially dangerous confrontations. Given the rule that the duel can only proceed if the lower-ranked individual consents. Haruto respectfully declines Ryuga's challenge. He exercises his right to refuse, knowing that Ryuga cannot compel him to participate without his agreement. Ryuga resorts to underhanded tactics to pressure Haruto. He directs his attention to Shinonome, insinuating that she should reconsider her associations. With a sinister demeanor, he invites Shinonome to a private session, ostensibly to assist her in securing a position within the student council. Shinonome reluctantly expresses her gratitude to Ryuga, her melancholy evident. Haruto, witnessing this, feels a surge of anger. He confronts Ryuga, accepting his challenge, but with a condition. The loser must leave the academy for good. Ryuga, displaying arrogance, dismisses Haruto's condition, claiming it's too late to retreat now. Later, during lunch break, while Haruto enjoys a burger, his future self notices a change in him. Remarking on his increasing resemblance to himself, he warns Haruto not to underestimate Ryuga, noting his potential to rise to the rank of the Adventurers Guild Shinjuku branch chief. Haruto, intrigued, delves deeper into Ryuga's background. His future self reveals that in the future, Ryuga will innovate new spells related to the fire element, eventually earning a place among the 7 top sages. However, alongside his achievements, there are darker aspects to Ryuga's character. He will misuse his authority, exploiting numerous innocent women. Despite his reprehensible behavior, Ryuga possesses considerable charisma, which allows him to amass a large following. His future self suggests that Ryuga likely used his followers to uncover Haruto's dragon-slaying feat. With this knowledge, Haruto realizes that, given his current abilities, he stands little chance against Ryuga, whose claims of being a genius mage are not unfounded. Haruto opens his stats panel, impressing his future self with his growth. However, when he compares his stats to Ryuga's, his future self points out that there's at least a tenfold difference in their strengths. Haruto worries about the vast gap, but is surprised to learn that space-time magic can be used to view others' stats as well. As Haruto eats his burger, his attention shifts to 2 girls nearby. One is comforting the other, urging her to stay calm. The crying girl explains that she suddenly can't use her magic at all, for reasons she doesn't understand. She's worried that if this problem continues, she will fail her mage's course. Her friend, who is trying to comfort her, is confused as well. She reassures her friend, saying that there's nothing wrong with her chanting, or the way she uses her wand, and can't figure out why she suddenly can't perform any magic. The girl who lost her magic asks her friend if there's no other option besides accepting Ryuga's private lessons at his place despite his open harassment. Overhearing their conversation, Haruto becomes enraged. He approaches the girls and asks if they have a moment to spare. The girls, curious and wary, ask who Haruto is, and if he's from the swordsman's course. With his hands in his pockets, Haruto walks towards them, making a fist to show his determination. He declares his dedication to helping the girl, ensuring she won't have to take any private lessons from Ryuga. Haruto asks the girl to stay put as he closes his eyes, focusing intently. Haruto now has a much better understanding of the inner workings of magic. With this new insight, he uses his skill and notices a burn-in effect in some of the magic circuits within her body. It appears that due to the excessive chanting of spells that surpass her magic capacity, the girl has gotten her magic circuits clogged. If Haruto can successfully eliminate the clogging and disturbances in these magic circuits, the normal flow of magic will be restored. After his thorough diagnosis, he asks the girl not to be alarmed and begins to carefully remove the disturbances from her body. At this moment, the girl's friend steps forward, suspicious of Haruto's actions, and inquires what he is doing. Haruto asks the girl with a magic problem to try using some magic. As she performs the incantations, she effortlessly casts a wind attribute spell. Her friends are amazed to find it more powerful than ever before. The girl sincerely thanks Haruto, relieved that she no longer has to take private lessons from Ryuga or endure his harassment. On his way home, Haruto seeks advice from his future self on how to become stronger. Reflecting on Ryuga's evil actions, he realizes he has only 3 days left to close the gap in their strength. Haruto asks his future self to recommend a dungeon that will significantly boost his growth and one that he can manage to conquer at his current level. His future self, with a devilish smile, tells Haruto that he anticipated this question and has already decided on the next dungeon they will tackle. When Haruto inquires about the rewards, he learns that not only will he gain a colossal amount of experience points and a new space-time magic, but he will also be able to summon a beast. This presents a great opportunity for Haruto to master his new weapons. Haruto finds this both intriguing and a bit frightening. Following the instructions of his future self, he heads towards the Azabu B-rank dungeon. As he reaches the core of the dungeon, he finds himself surrounded by a vast number of enemies. Haruto asks his future self if he is expected to handle all of them alone. His future self instructs him to kill every single one of them without mercy. Haruto takes his stance and dashes towards the monsters, engaging them in fierce combat. This battle continues for an hour, and Haruto manages to take out all of them. As he ventures deeper into the dungeon, he encounters two adventurers, struggling to defeat Dark Crystal Knights, the same monsters Haruto had easily dispatched earlier. The adventurers' attacks fail to even scratch the monsters, leaving them terrified. Just as the monsters are about to strike, Haruto dashes in, leaps over the creatures, and stabs one in the head, killing it instantly. The two adventurers thank him profusely, and Haruto urges them to leave quickly, warning them that the inner section of the dungeon is filled with such monsters and is extremely dangerous. The adventurers express concern for Haruto, but realizing they have no other option, they reluctantly accept his proposal to lure the enemies away from them so they can escape the dungeon. They apologize for leaving Haruto in this situation and express gratitude for his earlier rescue. Meanwhile, Haruto's future self, keeping track of the monsters he has defeated, informs him that he has taken out 89 monsters so far, not even fulfilling half of the quota he is supposed to. Haruto acknowledges this fact and resolves to continue grinding. Haruto's future self explains to him that these monsters in the dungeon yield maximum experience points, making them the most efficient way for Haruto to level up. While it's true that these monsters are challenging for Haruto at his current level, his Chaos Sword's light attribute enables him to engage them on equal footing. Using his stop chain magic, Haruto binds the enemies and swiftly dispatches them. When his future self encourages him to take out as many as possible, Haruto vows not to leave a single one alive and commits to slaying them all. As he continues defeating the monsters, a Dark Crystal General with stats akin to a boss-type monster emerges. Before the boss could overwhelm him with its immense powers, Haruto taps into the special properties of his Chaos Sword. As he battles the monster general, his future self enlightens him on the fundamental principles of space-time magic, distinct from those of regular magic. Space-time magic operates independently of magic capacity and instead relies on a specific factor, governing the flow of time in the world. His future self introduces Haruto to the Chronos factor, explaining that because space-time magic isn't tied to magic capacity, even someone like him with zero magic capacity can activate it. Haruto questions why he's only being informed of such crucial information now. His future self, attempting to mask his lack of knowledge, suggests that moments of intense combat are the ideal opportunities for rapid learning. As Haruto vanquishes the general, another troublesome group of monsters, the Dark Crystal Sorcerers, appears. They cast a powerful light-type magic at him, prompting his future self to remind him of his identity as a space-time mage and the significance of the Chronos factor. He urges Haruto to seize control of the flow of time. As Haruto focuses, he channels a beam of light from his hand and questions if this is what seizing the flow of time entails. His future self is impressed, acknowledging Haruto's talent and noting that he himself had only managed to release a chrono ray at a later stage. With Haruto's newfound ability, he swiftly defeats all of the monsters, resulting in a significant increase in his levels. Eager to earn more experience points, he inquires about his next target and finds himself facing a massive gate. As Haruto prepares to enter the gate, he experiences a painful headache and instinctively grips his head. His future self notices this and explains that it's unavoidable. Continuous use of space-time magic often brings about such side effects. Apparently, space-time magic places an increased burden on the brain. His future self offers him the option to retreat for now, but Haruto, aware that time is of the essence, resolves to proceed through the gate. On the other side of the gate, he faces the legendary Cerberus. His future self warns him that this particular boss possesses a sense of dignity, likening it to the soul of a samurai, and advises him to stay vigilant. Despite his worsening headache, Haruto's future self provides him with a potion to alleviate the pain. Haruto, resting in the dungeon and waiting to recover before the battle, expresses his confusion. Have you ever encountered a character described as a monstrous samurai warrior? I can't recall one. His future self, after analyzing the boss, informs Haruto of an old wound on its right flank and advises him to target. As Haruto prepares for the battle, he senses the ominous aura emanating from the creature and wonders if it truly is waiting for him. He contemplates whether he owes the creature a debt of gratitude for the opportunity. As Cerberus comes howling and charging at Haruto, he swiftly retrieves his rank A sword from his item box and prepares for combat. Immediately, he identifies the wound his future self mentioned, but before he can act, the boss seizes Haruto's sword with one of its mouths. Reacting quickly, Haruto releases his grip on the sword and leaps backward. His future self directs him to dodge, as he anticipates the boss's impending breath weapon attack. Utilizing his time magic, Haruto narrowly avoids the attack, and with strategic precision, he closes in on the wound. Visualizing the power of space-time magic in his hand, he delivers a powerful punch, aimed directly at the beast's vulnerable spot. As Haruto dashes out of the beast's attack range, his future self realizes that Haruto has utilized pressure point treatment to heal Cerberus's old wound. Haruto, showing his character, proposes that he wishes to engage in a fair fight with the beast, considering their debt repaid. He expresses the belief that respect should be given to those who show respect, even if they are monsters. However, his future self considers him to be somewhat crazy, warning that Haruto has essentially signed his own death warrant by facing such a formidable opponent on equal terms. Why wouldn't his future self be worried? If Haruto died in the present age, his future self would never exist. Unexpectedly, Cerberus returns Haruto's sword, but Haruto refuses to use it, preferring to engage in a brawl reminiscent of a duel between two samurai rather than a typical dungeon boss battle. Even his future self is bewildered by their unconventional approach. As the brawl ensues, both Haruto and Cerberus charge at each other, resulting in a collision that sends them both staggering back. Quickly recovering, Haruto draws strength from the blue crystal and delivers a powerful punch to one of Cerberus' faces. In retaliation, Cerberus bites Haruto's arm with its other mouth, leaving him injured. His future self begins to worry, urging Haruto to regain his composure. However, Haruto reassures his future self that he is fully aware of his actions. Determined to give it his all, he faces Cerberus head-on. As the beast unleashes flames from its mouth, Haruto swiftly dodges and, in a blink of an eye, positions himself beneath the monster. With a burst of speed, he launches attack. Unfortunately, his efforts fall short due to the injury sustained earlier when Cerberus bit his arm. Cerberus attempts to attack Haruto with its claws, but Haruto's surprise attack sends the creature flying. Without hesitation, Haruto dashes towards Cerberus, declaring an end to the creature's reign with a powerful high jump kick. With all his strength behind the blow, he manages to defeat Cerberus. As he emerges victorious and exits the dungeon, exhaustion overwhelms Haruto, causing him to collapse. Upon regaining consciousness, he discovers that his level has increased by 20 and he has been rewarded with the space-time mage's robe. However, his astonishment grows as he sees Cerberus standing before him, fully intact. Haruto, taken aback, quickly rises to his feet. To Haruto's surprise, Cerberus exhibits a docile demeanor, resembling a loyal puppy awaiting its master's affection. Haruto's future self admits that he never anticipated events unfolding in this manner, but since Haruto has received the rewards, they can accept it and be content. When Haruto questions if the reward referred to the mage's robe he obtained, his future self clarifies that the true reward is the summoned beast, Cerberus. His future self advises Haruto to establish an official contract with the sacred beast. Explaining the process, his future self tells Haruto that he must feed Cerberus his blood, thereby making it his vassal. Following the instructions, Haruto feeds Cerberus his blood, cementing their bond. From now on, Cerberus is Haruto's loyal vassal, ready to be summoned at his command whenever needed. The scene shifts to 3 days later, on the day of the magic duel. As Haruto enters his school, Shinonome comes running toward him, her usual worried expression evident. She asks Haruto where he's been, clearly concerned. Haruto explains that he's been undergoing some special training in preparation for the duel. Curious about the nature of his training, Shinonome observes that Haruto appears to be in rough shape. Haruto reassures her that he's now confident in his ability to confront Ryuga. Shinonome can't help but wonder if this is the same Haruto she knows, as he seems like a completely different person now. As Ryuga catches sight of Haruto, an evil smile spreads across his face. It assumed Haruto had run off somewhere, and now finds him pitiful for showing up to face humiliation. The atmosphere grows tense as Ryuga approaches Haruto. He reminds Haruto that the duel will commence after classes and inquires if he still remembers the foolish condition he proposed. with Shinonome looking saddened. Haruto nods in acknowledgement, confirming that he accepts the condition. The loser must drop out of school. Ryuga deems this condition a bit mundane and proposes to spice things up by adding a bet of 100 million credits. Along with his friends, he laughs, thinking this exorbitant amount would be enough to scare Haruto away. Haruto's future self observes Ryuga's cunning tactics, realizing that he's doing everything in his power to provoke Haruto. It's clear that Ryuga's true intention is to enslave Haruto for the rest of his life, believing he doesn't possess such wealth. It's just like when you have to do the dishes in a restaurant after you know who invited you to treat you, never came back from the washroom. As Shinonome prepares to speak up against the unfairness of the bet, Haruto intervenes and accepts it himself. With a smug demeanor, Ryuga departs, informing Shinonome that she'll have to take his private lesson after he's done dealing with Haruto, since she dared to stand up for him. Haruto, displaying confidence, assures Shinonome not to worry, expressing certainty that he won't lose. This gesture causes Shinonome to blush, relieved to know that the boy she likes is standing up for her. The scene shifts to the time of the duel. As Haruto heads towards the designated battlefield, he encounters some sorcerers on his way who appear hostile. It becomes evident that they've been set up by Ryuga, aiming to ensure Haruto never reaches the battlefield on time. The sorcerers inform Haruto that they'll each be paid 1 million credits for taking him down. Despite their trash talk, Haruto remains composed, inwardly irritated by their antics. He coolly remarks that he's relieved Ryuga is resorting to the same old tricks, nothing new. As one of the sorcerers charges at him, Haruto swiftly grabs him by the face and slams him to the ground. He then challenges the others to come at him all at once, delivering a well-deserved beating. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Ryuga mocks Haruto for his absence and dismisses him as all talk. He threatens the referee, insisting they declare it a win for Ryuga if Haruto doesn't show up within the next minute. As Shinonome anxiously watches, Haruto nonchalantly strolls onto the scene, as if nothing has transpired. With a puzzled expression, he questions Ryuga's apparent confusion, reminding him that their duel was already scheduled. Ryuga attempts to respond, but finds himself rendered speechless by Haruto's unexpected arrival. Giving a chilling glare to the referee, Haruto instructs him to commence the duel without delay. As the battle begins, Ryuga remains bewildered about how Haruto managed to bypass the bullies he sent after him. Determined to put an end to Haruto, Ryuga opts to unleash his full power from the outset. With fierce determination, he casts the top-tier fire spell, Hellfire Garb, aiming directly at Haruto. Ryuga believes that if this powerful spell connects, it will spell certain defeat for Haruto. Haruto perceives Ryuga's spell as causing disruptions in the flow of time and predicting their future positions. With a keen eye on the trajectory of the fire bullets, Haruto effortlessly evades the attack. Even Ryuga's double-hit trap attack fails to catch him off guard, leaving Ryuga stunned by Haruto's agility. Leaping into the air, Haruto unleashes the Chrono Ray on Ryuga, smashing him forcefully into the ground. The audience is left bewildered, as they are aware of Haruto's purported zero magic capacity, and none of them can recognize the mysterious Chrono Ray. Shinonome, however, is filled with joy, realizing that Haruto has undergone significant changes. Haruto taunts Ryuga, questioning if that was truly the best he could muster. Infuriated, Ryuga's eyes blaze with anger as he hurls insults at Haruto and unleashes his ultimate skill, the Flame Dragon's Ardent Fist, upon him. Haruto's future self warns him that this skill involves melee attacks that reach temperatures of up to 3,000 degrees Celsius. As Ryuga's blazing fist collides with Haruto's own, he becomes exhilarated, knowing that anything it touches is incinerated to dust. However, Haruto utilizes his space-time magic to neutralize Ryuga's flames, knocking him to the ground. Seizing the opportunity, Haruto attempts to strike Ryuga, but Ryuga narrowly evades the blow. As Ryuga attempts to flee, Haruto mocks him, deriding him for his cowardice and labeling him as trash. Feeling cornered and desperate, Ryuga orders his support group to transfer their power to him. As his powers surge and amplify, Ryuga revels in the newfound strength despite it being a blatant violation of the duel rules. Unexpectedly, Ryuga unleashes another ultimate secret technique, the demonic flame incarnation. Transformed into a towering demonic giant, he becomes imbued with the combined magical powers of hundreds of students from the mage course. Haruto's future self warns him that ordinary methods will be insufficient to handle such demonic powers. Haruto finds himself trapped by the demonic giant, unable to fend off its relentless assault. Desperate for a solution, he instinctively activates his chrono ray, only to discover that it has no effect on the massive creature. With no escape route in sight, Haruto scans his surroundings for any possible advantage and notices a peculiar disturbance in the flow of time, a tear that seems out of place. Wondering if widening the tear could aid him in some way, Haruto focuses his efforts on expanding it. Though unsure of the outcome, he takes the risk in hopes of finding a way to turn the tide. Despite the giant's hand regenerating after being destroyed, Haruto's actions buy him precious time. In a daring move, Haruto utilizes his future self Plushie as a makeshift trampoline, launching himself into the air. Though his future self is irritated by the unorthodox use, he begrudgingly allows it, recognizing the necessity of the situation. As Haruto ascends, he realizes that the tear in the flow of time he sensed lies within the giant's skull. With decisive action, Haruto widens the tear in the fabric of time, causing the demonic giant to lose its form and magic, reverting back to Ryuga. Ryuga, stunned and disbelieving, is overcome with fear. In a desperate attempt to regain control, he grabs Haruto by his clothes, assuming a bully-like stance. However, Haruto wastes no time and swiftly delivers a powerful punch, knocking Ryuga unconscious. As Ryuga crumples to the ground, defeated, the referee has no option but to declare Haruto the victor, bringing an end to the intense duel. So much for keeping a low profile. After his victory, Haruto was treated to delicious snacks by his friend Shinonome, who, along with her friends, throws a celebration party in his honor. As they enjoy their drinks, one of the girls expresses relief that their troublesome senior is finally dropping out of school. The others chime in, agreeing that he deserved his fate, having treated the school and its students as his personal domain. Ryuga's incessant harassment and tendency to use his wealth to manipulate situations had worn thin on the entire student body. They reassure Shinonome that she narrowly escaped his grasp, as he would have ensnared her too, if given the chance. One of the girls suddenly recalls the 100 million credits that were at stake and asks Haruto what he did with them. Haruto responds casually, admitting that he completely forgot about the monetary aspect of the bet, emphasizing that his intention was never focused on the material gain from the beginning. The conversation takes a turn as the girls attempt to delve into more personal matters, teasing Haruto about his relationship with Shinonome. Caught off guard, Shinonome blushes and spits out the juice she is drinking in embarrassment. She tries to play it off coolly, asking her friend what she means by that. However, her friends point out that Haruto's willingness to confront the top-ranked student was a clear indication of his feelings for her. As sweat beads form on his forehead, Haruto hastily excuses himself, claiming he needs to use the bathroom. As he rushes off, the girls remark on the noticeable change in Haruto, noting that he seems more mature now. Meanwhile, Shinonome reflects on how Haruto has always been there to protect her, even when he stood no chance at all. She blushes at the realization that she and Haruto share a secret bond known only to the two of them. After washing his hands, Haruto returns to his friends, apologizing for their behavior. However, his future self advises him not to dwell on it, noting that he hasn't seen such liveliness in a long time. Suddenly, Haruto's future self urgently instructs him to go home, revealing that it's an emergency. Remembering his beautiful days with his family, Haruto heeds the advice and rushes home as quickly as possible. With a heavy heart, Haruto's future self reveals the real reason for contacting him in the past. His young sister, whom he believed to be dead, is actually alive somewhere. Haruto is stunned by this revelation, finding it difficult to comprehend. He insists that Ria passed away in the plane crash long ago. However, his future self assures him that she is not dead at the current time. Urging Haruto to prepare himself, he informs him that they are going to embark on a mission to save her. This unexpected news fills Haruto with a mixture of disbelief, hope, and determination as he braces himself for the journey ahead. Haruto's mind drifts back to precious memories with his beloved little sister, moments filled with her infectious laughter and innocent charm. He recalls how she lovingly crafted a gift for him, dubbing herself Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. She excitedly planned a party for her return from a ballet recital, extracting a promise from Haruto to get her a gift as well. Sadly, she never returned, leaving Haruto unable to fulfill the promise he made to her that day. Snapped back to reality by his future self, Haruto is urged to collect himself and prepare for a quest of utmost importance. When he cannot afford to fail, perplexed by the revelation that his sister is somehow still alive, despite the plane crash, Haruto queries his future self about the incident and what he knows about it. Haruto recounts the common beliefs surrounding the plane crash, a sudden, mysterious mid-air breakup at high altitude leading to the tragic accident. However, his future self reveals a reality far beyond the scope of current scientific understanding. He explains the existence of a space-time hole that opened in the sky that day, connecting their world with another dimension. His future self further elaborates that even with advanced technology from the future, it's impossible to predict where the hole will open next. The disturbance caused by the hole warped gravity, ultimately causing the plane to break down and crash. Perplexed, Haruto questions how anyone could survive such a catastrophic event. Haruto's future self prompts him to recall that his sister's body was never recovered after the crash. Instead, she was sucked into the space-time hole, leading to a dimensional gap where the rules of their world no longer apply. Time passes differently in this dimension, so while years may have gone by in their world, for her, it would be like the blink of an eye. His future self assures him that when the hole reopens, his sister will be thrown back into their world. Haruto is struck with angina at the realization that his sister will die when this occurs. However, his future self presents a glimmer of hope, explaining that he has discovered a way to save her. Despite being too late to prevent the crossing in the future, he implores Haruto to act swiftly and rescue her for the sake of both of them. With a sense of urgency and determination, Haruto prepares himself for the daunting task ahead, determined to reunite with his long-lost sister and bring her back home. With determination coursing through him, Haruto becomes focused on the task of saving his sister. He learns from his future self that the space-time hole will appear far above Tokyo Tower, specifically above the top floor of the Sky Castle dungeon. As the day passes, Haruto makes meticulous preparations for the rescue mission. He visits the adventurer's shop and purchases all the offensive items available, utilizing the substantial funds he earned from leveling up in the B-rank Azabu's Crystal Labyrinth. Despite the sweltering June heat, Haruto dons the scarf his sister made for him, a tangible reminder of their bond. Guided by his future self, Haruto heads to Tokyo Tower's observation deck, where the gate to the Sky Castle dungeon awaits. With only 24 hours remaining before the space-time hole opens, 300 meters above the dungeon's top floor, Haruto knows that time is of the essence. With a heavy heart, Haruto absorbs the gravity of the situation, as his future self stresses the dire consequences of failure, his sister plummeting to her demise in a bloodbath if they don't make it in time. Undeterred by the grim reality, Haruto dons the robe he acquired from the B-rank dungeon, steeling himself for the daunting task ahead. With unwavering determination, Haruto solemnly vows to save his sister and defy the course of fate. Driven by love and resolve, he embarks on his mission, ready to confront whatever challenges lie ahead and rewrite the cruel twists of destiny that have separated him from his beloved sister for far too long.